Good morning, USA. Welcome to another episode of the Bernie or Bust Show. Still unshaved, unbathed, unedited, and unscripted. But let me tell you, I do shave and bathe every day. It's just that I don't do it before this show. All right. So, dangerous. Today's biggest big idea. Well, we might have a few, but one idea to start with is dangerous. Kim Iverson says that Donald Trump is not more dangerous than some of the other Democratic candidates. She frames her points from the idea that we need safety. And we get pulled into that idea very easily. I'm not saying she's trying to trick us, but if we start with the idea that we need to be safe, then we'll go right down the path to try to find a way to be safe, as opposed to what would be higher than that, which is a way to be happy, a way to be fulfilled, a way to love each other, and a way to be artistically satisfied. There are a lot of other things more important than being safe. Being free is more important than being safe, and being free often is in direct conflict with being safe, because if you're safe, you often have to give up a lot of your freedom. After 9/11, Homeland Security was trying to make us more safe, but it also has had the effect of making us much less free. The CIA openly admits to spying on us. Watch Tulsi Gabbard talking to Joe Rogan in the Joe Rogan Experience, and she's a congresswoman. She's telling it plainly. The CIA is spying on its own people. This is not some batshit crazy person like me. This is a United States congresswoman who says openly that the CIA is a threat to its own people. That makes Tulsi dangerous, but not to people, the regular people. It makes Tulsi dangerous to the CIA. It makes her dangerous to big money. It makes her dangerous to the whole military-industrial complex. So Tulsi is being smeared. If you look through some of my tabs today, mainstream media smearing the unacceptable Democratic candidates and policies. Mainstream media are smearing the dangerous candidates, the people of whom John Cowan would say they're an existential threat. They're an existential threat to the powers. And mainstream media is just a puppet of the powers. Caitlin Johnstone has a take on this. WAPO publishes Gabbard smear piece filled with blatant lies. The interesting thing about her article is the smearer is the Washington Post, which is wholly owned by a CIA contractor who is reportedly working to control the underlying infrastructure of the global economy. If you're a threat to this guy, his name is Josh Rogan, then you're doing a good thing. He's been a cheerleader for U.S. regime change, interventionism in Syria. No wonder he doesn't like Tulsi. And so he puts forth all these reasonable sounding arguments, and his agenda is ugly. So he calls Tulsi all sorts of names and smears her in all sorts of ways. If you trace all the smears back, and it's not easy to do, you'll find people behind them like this. Jimmy Dore. Tulsi shuts down MSNBC host mid-smear, and he goes through. So this is a big topic on the left. We've got all sorts of pushback now from the establishment. And the easiest place to see it, especially as other Tulsi and the progressive wing get some traction in the debates, in the recent debates, you see then damage control. You see the CNN, the MSNBC, you see the, and less so Fox News, which is interesting. I watched Tucker Carlson the other day and thought, wow, he really likes Tulsi. He really likes what she's trying to do. I want to give credit where it's due there. Good job, Tucker. I watched a few of his episodes and see that he doesn't seem to be worried about an anti-war message. If you have an like Phil Donahue on MSNBC, he was fired for his anti-war reporting. So it's nice to see that Fox News will allow an anti-war angle. I wasn't intending to say all that, but I gotta say it if it's true. So let's go to this article. The idea, the biggest big idea. Let's start watching a little bit of Kim Iversen here to see where she's trying to go with the anti-smear angle.
So despite Democratic candidates having so many good, big ideas, the one idea that Democratic voters care about the most is the idea of defeating Donald Trump. Take a look at some of these ideas.
My big idea is universal pre-K.
I'm Pete Buttigieg, and my big idea is to strengthen American democracy through better voting and representation for all Americans.
I am Kamala Harris, and my big idea is raise teacher pay.
I'm Kirsten Gillibrand, and I'm running for President of the United States. My big idea is paid family leave.
I'm Elizabeth Warren, and I want to cancel student loan debt and provide for universal free college.
Yeah. I'm Amy Klobuchar, and my big idea is to fight addiction and treat mental health.
My big idea is baby bonds.
I'm Andrew Yang. I'm running for president in 2020, and my big idea is a freedom dividend of $1,000 a month for every American starting at age 18.
My idea is to ensure that we have a new Voting Rights Act.
My big idea is to bring peace and prosperity to this country by ending these wasteful regime change wars.
What's your big idea? Medicare for all.
Lots of good ideas, right? Some are better.
Lots of good ideas. Okay, so from here, you can see where the smears are coming from. Kim is not really trying to address the smears in this video, but she does. That's one of her biggest topics in her other videos. And here she's trying to make a case. She doesn't come right out and say it, but she's trying to make a case for Tulsi Gabbard over every other candidate, including Bernie Sanders. And her angle is safety. So if you looked at all those big ideas, Tulsi's big idea was peace and prosperity by ending regime change wars. And it's a good one. It's a great idea. I'm glad that Tulsi is a threat to the establishment. But keeping us safe, I think, is not the biggest big idea. Kim takes issue with some of the candidates whose ideas seem not to be central. She goes on to say her assertion, and Tulsi, she and Tulsi agree on this, is that the cessation of interventionary wars should be the biggest of all big ideas. And if that is the biggest idea, Tulsi probably would be the strongest candidate for President of the United States. So she goes on in that video, and this is where some of my Facebook friends are upset. She says that Donald Trump isn't as dangerous if you look at war. Donald Trump is dangerous for lots of reasons. Bigotry is a big reason. The people he's harming on the border, that's a big reason. So he's definitely dangerous. And Kim doesn't try to say that he's not dangerous, but what she does say is that he is not as pro-war as, say, Hillary Clinton or other people on that side of the Democratic Party. And she makes the case that war kills more people by far than border skirmishes. It kills more people than even bigotry, even with Donald Trump encouraging bigots to harm people. She's still right. Kim is still right that war is is the most dangerous thing, especially if you think about the brinksmanship that happened in the Cold War. If you think about two nuclear powers playing chicken with each other, extremely dangerous. So interventionary wars, I'd have to give it to Kim. They are the most dangerous aspect, and Donald Trump is not as dangerous as the hawkish part of the Democratic Party, and that's a big part. If you look at their records, there are a lot of hawkish Democrats who are more hawkish than Donald Trump. Kim also pointed out that the Democratic voters, when you poll them, a big percentage of them say that the biggest priority is to defeat Donald Trump. And she's right to take issue with that. That should not be the biggest priority. Even Bernie Sanders has said defeating Donald Trump is not enough. As much as he wants to defeat him, he knows that that's not enough. We need to do more than just get rid of Donald Trump. We have to replace him with somebody who's going to have the biggest of big ideas. In my article, I said here I could go in either of two directions. I could choose pragmatic and I could choose philosophical. And I'm going to go the way I did in the article. I'll start with pragmatic. I would say the biggest idea from a pragmatic perspective is economic justice, because it can lead to everything else that every other idea supports. All those other ideas that the other candidates are putting forward could be possible if, and only if, economic justice is achieved. Think, for example, of the ideas single-payer Medicare for all, free college tuition, student loan forgiveness, paid family and maternity leave, subsidized daycare, lower overall interest rates for credit cards for consumer debt, and universal basic income. All those would only happen, all of those would actually lead to economic justice, and they would only happen, I'm going to go on to say from a pragmatic point, if we take down and dismantle the current power structure. Now, Tulsi obviously is a threat to the current power structure, but nobody keeps coming back again and again to the idea that we need to take down and dismantle the current power structure than Bernie Sanders. To enact any other big ideas, we must first push out of the way the central bankers, the transnational corporations, big oil, big food and drug companies, big military, big prison, big health insurance, big intelligence, CIA, etc., hedge fund managers, and so forth. All of those people are standing smack in the way of economic justice. We won't get economic justice just by having big ideas and good ideas. We have adversaries who need to be dismantled before we can get to economic justice. So if Tulsi and Kim want to protect the world from the military-industrial complex, bottom line, they have to take big money out of the picture. If they take big money out, they'll take big military out. That means standing up to Halliburton, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, and those guys. It also means taking down all of the oligarchs and their enablers. If we do that, we can solve the military problem. If we do that, we can solve all the other problems. So that's why I think that we should start with economic justice. And to start with that, we need to take down the power structure. Now, even though it was Kamala who said this, Kim, I'm speaking directly to you. Please don't ever again use the example of teacher pay or education in general as an example of a secondary political issue. Because in the video, Kim does say that teacher pay is not a central issue. And it's not because I'm a teacher or have been a teacher. It's because of what I'm about to say. Even more important than economic justice is an equitable education system that includes the arts. I've said this my whole life, and everyone thinks that I'm woo-woo. But I still hold on to the idea that the biggest idea of all is breaking the vicious cycle of the inevitable rise of the oligarchic assholes who always seem able to climb back up after we pull them down. So I have a pragmatic defense of education that is really an education and not just indoctrination. The general population needs to be better educated so that we can resist the assholes who want to diminish our value as humans and just plug us into the machinery. By better educated, I mean all of us need to have educational experiences that lead us to values. Values is what an education should be all about. Values that will allow us to resist war, will allow us to live lives that elevate the best elements of humanity. Values that allow us to care about the education of other people's children. People who live in other neighborhoods, people who live in difficult circumstances. We need to care about educating their children. Our current educational experience, not just K through 12, but higher education as well, has become a bean counter driven endeavor that is really just trying to prepare cogs for the machinery. And you can tell because they're trying to destroy the humanities. An education that includes literature, philosophy, music, dance, visual art, and theater. That foreign languages, I should have included that. That kind of an education, the bean counters tell us, is expensive. What they really mean is that it leads people to be able to challenge the status quo. It leads people to think about life as belonging to them. Beauty, love, compassion, caring. All of these are values fostered in an education that's based in the humanities, that's based in humans being more important than markets. The humanities are a direct threat to the establishment, if you think about it, because they elevate the human spirit over the need to keep markets going. And so I would say the biggest idea is to get all of the humans on board. Now I've come to the catch-22. We can't start with education. We can't put education in place because people would have to be educated to know why they need to be educated. So it's a catch-22. To escape, we need eventually to find ourselves in a society that possesses a foundation of economic justice and security. Only then will people allow their children, and more importantly, only then will they allow other people's children to receive the kind of education that will lead us all out of the dogmatic and violent morass we currently find ourselves in. If we had an educated populace, the big money people wouldn't be able to push us around like they do now. I'm going to leave you with a quote from Marianne Williamson. She said this to the 2015 World Parliament of Religions. I tiptoe around this idea about education being an antidote to religion, but I will stomp in here with her with both feet. Passionate, free-thinking women have never been appreciated by the religions of the world. That is because passionate, free-thinking women raise passionate, free-thinking children who grow up to be passionate, free-thinking adults who are very difficult to manipulate and almost impossible to control. And that is why education is the biggest of the big ideas.